So you do also do custom orders as well? Do you have time to do that?
I will say this year I had to put it on pause, which is kind of weird because the last like 2 or 3 years that I was in Savannah, I really emphasized like doing a lot more custom work. I had like taken a step back at the school. I was in like a leadership position, and then I went back to just teaching so that I could have more time outside of work. And so I was, yeah, doing a lot of orders, both for shoes and bags. But then when I moved out here, I pretty much had to just say, like, I can't take any orders for, at least like 6 months to a year. So I have kind of stopped that. And, the other thing is when I was teaching, it's like making and demoing is like part of your everyday life. But now, even though I'm talking about and working on shoes all day, it's like a very different thing is when you're like looking towards production. And so I don't always want to come home and also like keep working on shoes.
Shoes, right.
So I do a lot more like, I do like garment sewing or just like fun kind of craft projects to stay creative. But I think I have now started to find the balance a little bit more where, most of my work in the new role is just like communicating about shoes. I am not really drafting as many patterns from scratch. So I'm think hopefully, once I get settled in Portland, I can kind of start taking orders again.
Yeah, that sounds good. And you can pace it to and have customers' expectation to be like, okay, it's gonna maybe take double the time, so you don't need to rush through and stress about it, but you're doing it on off hours, I guess. So that'll be,
I mean, that's really been the thing for me, like doing bespoke orders, basically for the last like 10 years has been like a side thing for me. I've never had it, other than when I first graduated, or like finished grad school and was doing freelance orders. It hasn't been my main income, so I have a lot of flexibility to like only take a few orders, let the customer know it's going to take longer. And I mean, a lot of my clients are like friends or family or people like, who I've gotten connected to through word of mouth.
right.
So I feel lucky that I can do those things. I know not everyone
Not
like
everybody.
making a living from
Yeah,
bespoke orders can do that.
right.
So I do have some flexibility.
That's great. You mentioned a little bit about grad school. Is it okay to go back in time a little bit and talk about like where you started shoemaking, who your
Oh yeah.
mentors are? Yeah, because I think randomly in England somebody mentioned your name. Somebody, I know who it is, but you can talk about the
Oh sure.
mentors that you've had. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I came to footwear in kind of a strange way, like I think most people do. I'm originally from Detroit. That's where I grew up. And I mean, it's like way back, my dad's a carpenter. I grew up around tools, and a lot of my extended family like worked in manufacturing and the auto industry. So like always kind of had that awareness of like an interest in how things are made. But I wanted to study fashion. I started sewing like when I was in middle school and high school. So I went to the Art Institute of Chicago, that's attached to the museum, and they had a really loose conceptual program. You didn't really have majors, but I went for textiles and fashion. And kind of just randomly, they had a few shoemaking classes. Like someone there had taken some classes in Italy like years ago, and was teaching them as kind of electives.
Yeah.
But for
Do you
me,
remember who it was? I'm curious.
well, so the original teacher there, her name was Jillian. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? She like ran the Fashion Resource Center at the museum. But my actual teacher was Eric Wilcox, who I believe now, goes by Kirsten. I haven't caught up with them in a while, but they were my very first teacher. And I mean, it was just kind of like, it combined everything I liked: tools, fashion, function, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of put my focus there for the rest of my schooling. And it was very like conceptual. I think Amara, who you interviewed, she
Yeah.
also went there, and it was like shoes as sculpture. So
Yeah.
really approaching footwear from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Um, but
That's
after I
it.
graduated, I got a internship and then a job with Mohop,
Mm-hmm.
who I think you've met as
Yeah.
well. So Annie Mohop was definitely one of my first mentors. And again, she was an architect. She was building shoes in a very different way than anyone else at the time. So I did production um, for her, and got to see her whole setup. So she was a big kind of mentor as far as like running a small business. But I really wanted to learn traditional shoemaking. I definitely did not feel like I was getting that where I started. And so I applied to the grad program at Cordwainers at London College of Fashion. I think at the time that was like the only grad program in the world even, and it was still very small.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was, fortunate enough to get in and move to London. And that was an incredible experience, not only going to the school, but also just being exposed to the bespoke world, at the heart
Did you
of.
have, I heard in that school, the bespoke hands-on classes were eliminated at some point. Were you able to do that, or was it mostly cemented construction that you learned?
It was mostly cemented construction. I think, yeah, the historical school was kind of absorbed by the London College of Fashion. And I think they did focus it much more towards industry. And a lot of the
Right.
technicians working in the school were from like, manufacturing backgrounds. So I couldn't, that was actually an obstacle. I couldn't really learn hand welting in school.
Mm.
So that I started touring like bespoke shops and just reaching out to people. And James and Deborah from Caraducker were like two of the most amazing people to meet
Yeah.
um, because they were using bespoke techniques, but they had kind of a contemporary edge, which a lot of the places I was going to were like, this is how we do it. You can't change it. But they had a real open mind, and I didn't take any of their courses, but they just kind of took me under their wing a little bit and would let me visit and kind of watch them do their thing. And I was actually there when they were like, they had one little studio and then they moved into the Savile Row
Mm.
location. So I got to see that workshop as well.
That's
And yeah,
great.
so they were big influences on my work. And even just James's blog at the time
Yeah.
had a big influence. And I was also following Marcel's blog at the time.
Yeah.
But so my focus there really changed to like traditional bespoke footwear with kind of a modern edge and much more menswear focused,
Mm-hmm.
since that really was where like the craft side of things were. And yeah, I knew I wanted to kind of stay on the making side. And so it was really hard. I was trying to find a job, that I could get a
Back
visa
in the
and stay in
stateside?
London.
Oh, in London, yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, but my dream was to like do a bespoke apprenticeship or something. But I ended up just freelancing. I did work with a pattern cutter briefly there. A friend of mine, John Brunswick, introduced me to this kind of old school pattern cutter, Ash. And I, kind of saw he just drafted patterns for companies, and that was kind of the first time I really saw that as
Mm-hmm.
a career. But I started doing some guest lecturing in the UK, and just freelance making and drafting. So I was looking into more teaching jobs, and then I got contacted by SCAD and ended up like helping them set up their footwear and accessories program, and moving back to the US, to
Yeah.
Georgia. Um, and yeah, I did that for about
About
eight
10 years?
years.
8 years. Okay. Yeah. That's when I met you, I think. Yeah. When you
Yeah,
came to New York often for also for work as well. Yeah.
yeah,
And
I
then
think
mhm.
yeah, I came up for one summer, and I came to a meeting of the New York Cordwainers, I think,
Oh
when you
yeah.
were having that in your
Oh
first
yeah.
studio.
Yep, yep, yep. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
and that's, so I was hired at the same time as Marcel. And yeah, we were maybe an unlikely pairing, but we just really hit it off and had a lot of the same ideas about education. And I think really balanced each other out. We have very different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And so we kind of built that curriculum with a few other faculty members who were there as well.
It's great. Yeah. I feel like there's so much good work that comes out of it. The students' work is beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
and not I feel like not every design school or fashion school um students can make. If you know what I mean. They could, some people outsource it to some sample makers and call it their final project, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I like that you guys really guide them to be really like hands-on and make an experiment and have that time to do that.
I think that's so key for me, even now, kind of, I work in development as the pattern engineer, so I work with a lot of designers, and I think even if you don't ever make a shoe again, just understanding how a shoe is made gives you such great, sorry, the
It's
airplane.
okay. It's not that bad.
Um, it just gives you so much more insight, and I think it almost like frees you up as a designer to be able to make informed decisions.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things is I actually have now worked with a few of my students in
Oh,
the
that's
sample
great.
room, and it's great. It comes full circle. You never really
Oh,
stop being a teacher.
right, right. To hear that you're also like working with the past students that they go on into their professional world, right?
Hmm.
Um, so my question, so I'm gonna skip a little bit about your custom orders if that's okay, or we can talk about it a little bit, but I loved how you were doing your experiments on the veg stand and you had the artist residency. You had like all the time, not all the time in the world, but you know, you had a lot of time to experiment, which is great. Right now, if you had unlimited resources and a time in the world with no worries about reality, what shoe or bag or clothing would you make?
Oh, that's like the dream, right? To just
Yeah.
be able to create and not have to worry about money or
Yeah.
other responsibilities. Um, well, that project I think shows a lot of what I would do. I love the like hand work process behind everything. I could like, really just nerd out on like what hand stitch to use here or like different leather working techniques. And I mean, a lot of people like just make shoes or clothing or whatever. But I do really like, I love kind of creation in all its forms. So I think some way to bring those all together would probably be um, my dream project. I don't know, maybe like making a full head to toe look or something, but veg tan be a material like, oh, did we lose her? Uh-oh. Here we go. Sorry, y'all. I'm just like in my
Sorry.
garage.
Yeah,
Um, okay. So
I'm back again. Sorry.
yeah, I think that project is a good illustration, the residency one that you shared, because I really didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do when I went into it. It was like I have this space, I wanted it to be performative, and I couldn't really have any machines there. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna bring in all this raw material and experiment and sort of, see what sticks, but really keep the focus on like the handwork and work that people can like see not only done in person, but then like you really see it as a feature of the designs.
Hmm.
And I mean, veg tan is just such a malleable material,
Yeah,
it's,
it's beautiful to work with.
yeah, it's kind of a dream. And obviously, like, you can't really work with that so much for practical execution sometimes. Um, so it was kind of more, yeah, just like an art sort of dream project. Um, but yeah, that I don't know. That's a tough one right now. I actually would really like to bring, more of like what I've been learning about sneakers into like my bespoke work. There's so many working parts. The team I'm on is like me as the upper kind of expert, and then a tooling, or like bottoming, sole
Mm-hmm.
expert. And I've been learning a lot from her just about different
Yeah.
molds and,
Yeah.
how all the sole units, are made. So, I think, yeah, maybe in the future, just sort of bridging like what I'm doing in my, uh, day job with kind of the craft that we're doing, because it's always interesting, like when you go into more like even fashion
Mm-hmm.
industry or sneaker industry, like there's a real difference between like shoemakers and craftsmen, and
Yeah.
then the people who are like designing and
Yep.
manufacturing shoes. And there isn't always a lot of crossover, so I'd love
Yep.
to kind of bring those skills together.
Together. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. That would be really cool. Yeah. What's your favorite leather to work with? I'm gonna go like more into details.
Oh man. I do really love like goat skin. I had some veg tan goat for a while that was really beautiful. It had all the like malleability qualities of veg tan, but had the surface grain texture of goat. But really, I think my favorite leather I've ever worked with, I kind of worked with the consortium of vegetable tan leather in Italy, and took some students on a trip to tour their factories,
I remember
and
that with
tanneries. And
Diane
I
Becker.
still have leather from there that it just smells amazing. The care that goes into not only like, how they raise the animals and the transparency that's involved there, but just the craftsmanship that goes into actually making the raw materials. So really for me, I think knowing like where the leather came from and like who has touched it along the way is kind of more important to me than maybe the actual finished product.
Mhm.
It's the same. I know you've heard about like the work I did with the Florida alligator
Yep.
tannery and farmers,
Yep.
through SCAD and with my
Yep.
students. And just, yeah, learning about how the animals are raised, and sort of the whole process,
Yeah. I'm
behind
hoping
like,
I'm hoping to interview her as well from Amtan.
oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in the southeast, of the U.S., there's a lot of, I mean, that's where American alligators are. And there's so many resources there. So that was a local material that was like,
That you're gonna,
made just a
yeah.
couple hundred miles from where I was living. So I do love alligator. I'd never really been an exotics person, but once I learned about the animal and especially the unique like skin structure, like those
Uh-huh.
boots that Amara showed,
Uh-huh.
where you can just piece together all these different textures just from one hide, and it's almost like working with a puzzle, to
Uh-huh.
figure out where they go. So alligator is probably one of my favorite materials, but again, like making sure that the skins are sustainably tracked and
Mm-hmm.
all of that is really important to me.
Interesting. And for your sneaker work, at work though, you don't use that much leather. Do you have a favorite non-leather material?
Um, I mean, I am kind of, I know a lot about like materials like knits and non-wovens. So yeah, I am kind of interested in those things. I haven't worked a lot with them in my own practice, but that is
Capacity, right?
something I want to get more into.
Hmm.
Adidas uses a lot of recycled polyester, and they have
Yeah,
kind of some big goals towards
right.
only using recycled
Recycled
polyester in the
materials,
future,
yeah. Which is
which,
cool. But it's big companies can do it at
yeah,
that scale. Yes. Yeah,
yeah, it
true.
is definitely hard to get your hands on certain things as an
Yeah,
independent maker.
yeah.
Um, but so yeah, I would love to experiment with more like stretch materials,
Hmm.
to do like kind of, just more sort of minimal
Hmm.
constructions. But yeah, I'm learning all about different like meshes and different like TPUs and all sorts of different things. So I've always been interested in that stuff. I also like worked with, like resins and plastics. So maybe if there's some way to get like access to sustainable options in that, that would be something I'd be interested in doing.
Cool. I have a question from a viewer. I posted something on stories and they responded. And now with my screens, it's a little hard to see who it was. Sorry, I'm not gonna name the person. But the person asked, if you're a beginner, would you recommend patterning using pre-made patterns and learning about the process first, or can you dive right into pattern making? What's your opinion on it?
So I do think it depends on your goals. Like if you want to become a shoemaker and like know the entire process, I do think narrowing it down a little bit at the beginning helps. Like, the first shoe I ever made, oh my gosh, it's like just a ballet flat that
Do you
looks
still
like,
have them?
I think they might be at my parents' house, but yes, I don't get rid of like anything. It's terrible. So yeah, I do have a lot of my old projects. But it didn't look good. It was just a basic ballerina flat. And if you try to do too much when you first start out, like none of it's going to look good. And there's so many steps in the shoemaking process. Even just having to like last something or, stitch something can be a big enough hurdle. So I do think starting with like a pre-made upper or even just pre-made patterns is a good place to start. And because you want to build your skills as you go along, right? Like for when you're at the university level, like we had a lot of time to fill and focus on. So like, I would still have students design a little bit into their first project, but it was always just a simple ballet flat, and then a derby or like a lace shoe. So you kind of want to build up in the difficulty and like skill set levels. If you're specifically interested in patterning, I mean, you can learn that independently from shoemaking. Actually, especially in like the bespoke world and in the industry, like things are divided. A lot of shoemakers don't make their own upper patterns. I feel like that's something we do in the US because we're kind of like one man or one person shows. But elsewhere in the world, there's a lot of specialization. So if you are just interested in like one step of the process, like focus in on that. But if you want to learn the entire process, I do think it's good to start
slowly.
Slowly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have a logo for your shoes that you place somewhere, like Maker's Mark?
I do. I actually meant to get it out, but honestly, I don't always use it, like especially when I make custom products. I don't like a lot of heavy branding. I think for me, I really want the design to kind of show through, and what I've like chosen with the client, like whether it's a functional detail or like the materials we've put together. So I will put a logo on the sock liner. But even sometimes in my bags, I won't put anything. It really, I'll sometimes like if it's for friends or family, they're like, I want your logo on there, like at least on the inside. But, it depends. I really want the actual shoe to be the focus. It would probably be different if I was making something to, sell, just to like different people, not something custom made, but yeah, I think it's kind of a case-by-case basis for me.
Yeah, I understand. What do you wear your creations? Are you wearing some right now?
I did make this jacket actually, but
Ooh, I want to see.
I'm here right now. My shoe choice is some Yeezy slides, which is kind of funny. I do wear a lot of like pretty much all the bags I have, or like, my wallet, like stuff like that. I do have a lot of handmade stuff on me at the same time, but I will say moving to LA, I wear a lot more sneakers.
Yeah.
So I do need to make some more like casual footwear for myself, because a lot of the stuff I have are like more dress shoes, which I did
Yeah.
wear a lot more like teaching when I had to kind of dress like, business casual or whatever. So that's one reason I'm making the shoes I showed you, is I just want some like super simple, no
Right.
hassle shoes that I made that I can wear. So yes, I'm
Yeah.
hoping to make myself a lot more
Great. Great. Great.
shoes. I
Yeah.
happen to wear a lot of sneakers right now.
I look forward to seeing all your new creations. Where do you see yourself or in the industry of yours, like in 3 years or 5 years? Do-
That's interesting. I mean, I do want to, like I said, I basically just started this new
yeah.
job remotely. I've been up to the offices a few times to meet my new team. But who knows when we'll all be back together.
Together. Right.
But I definitely want to stay in this role for a while. There's a lot I can learn, and it's like a new role for the team. They didn't really have a pattern, an upper
Technician. Right.
manager for a while. So it's also like, yeah, I can bring a lot to the team to help them. So I do imagine myself here, and hopefully I'll be in Portland for at least several years. I don't want to move again in a short
Right.
period of time. But eventually, and probably to coincide with that, I'm sure I'm going to start teaching like some, independent workshops on the side. And my ultimate goal is to go back to teaching, but bring sort of not only, my
Right.
bespoke and handmaking skills to the table, but also like the industry knowledge. And I'm sure Marcel and I are still work together on a lot of independent projects. So hopefully it will, involve whatever he's got going on as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then I'm wondering, as as in the industry too, do you feel like your company, you're not your company, but the company that you work for, I guess, would you guys be spearheading, I feel like, a lot of the innovation with recycled material? Like, do you feel like that?
By making, fewer products, more mindfully made products, using resources in the best way possible, and yeah, just kind of maybe reorienting priorities, as like you said,
Right.
we've all kind of had to do in our personal lives. And so I hope we expect those things from
Companies.
yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, yeah, you're ready to like incorporate things into your own practice as well. I feel like, what I had like a few questions and I'm like, I don't know which order. Um, what's your favorite shoe you've ever made in your shoemaking life? Or bags?
I will probably say I still look back fondly on like the work I made in grad school as like a large collection, and just have so many fond memories. I guess I didn't mention this. Another mentor of mine for my grad collection, I worked with a cow horn because at the time it was like, I was a vegetarian when I first started working with leather, and have always had
Wow.
like a different outlook on it, like wanting to use as much of it as I can. And so within the bespoke world, like when I was touring all these bespoke shops, I would see like cow horn, like brushes and shoe horns and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, where is that stuff made? And, like, why is it's never incorporated in the actual shoes? And I got in contact with one of the last remaining horn workers in the UK, and I went up to their workshops, and they kind of showed me, how they like take the raw cow horn, which is basically a byproduct of the leather industry, and they heat it. It's a thermoplastic. It's like nature's thermoplastic.
Wow.
So they would like, they showed me how to cut it and mold it and do all this stuff. And so I incorporated that into my shoes, and also my like textiles background. I incorporated lots of hand stitching, like, you know, kind of women's work into like the sort of more masculine sort of bespoke work.
Can we see those one day? Like maybe you can post it on your
Oh
Instagram
yeah,
or something.
I can post some photos. I don't know if I have that much of that work posted on my Instagram. So yeah, I'll
It
share photos.
sounds beautiful. I mean, the process, so you learned how to do it. So did you do it yourself in your environment that you were at? Yeah.
Yeah, we
Wow.
had like a full, that was probably one of the greatest things about Cordwainers is within the building, they had like shoemaking facilities and then like jewelry and mold making and then bag making. So we had access to like, I laser cut the horn and then we had
Wow.
like a forge, I would heat it up and bend it, drill holes in it so I could stitch it onto the shoes. Um, so yeah, I mean that is probably some of my favorite work because the cow horn is just such a beautiful material. And I've done projects with it since. I did a collaboration with a grad school classmate of mine who lives in Canada, Kat Marks. We did it like a mini collection of cow horn like body wear.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean just anything with like interesting techniques is my favorite. But probably for bags, I would say some of the alligator bags that I've done, just because again, like the material really dictates what the design looks like, and when the material and the design are intrinsically linked like that, that's when I get really excited.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Time is running short, so I'm gonna ask the one last. Can you show us your hands? I've been asking everybody, can you show us your hands?
Yes.
Do you have manicure at the moment?
I do actually. I just did it yesterday. But yeah, I think my hands got so rough when I was learning to weld that ever since, and since I've been teaching, I do wear fake nails because just
Protects
so
your
my regular
hand.
nails don't get so
Oh,
gnarly.
yeah.
And
Oh, great.
actually, I always joke that the nails are safety equipment for me because I've literally sanded through them or like hammered them or something. So yeah, I do try to
Yeah,
keep my nails looking good.
yeah. I have friends in our shoe space that say the same thing. They just have they're like protectors. They
Yes.
say, yes. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Um,
this was so fun.
yeah. Would you mind saving the video and posting on your Instagram stories so we can access it for 24 hours so other
Yes,
people can see?
I will definitely do that. And yeah, I will share some photos of my previous work. That's a great prompt.
Thank you. Thanks so
Awesome.
much. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing. All right, be
happy to.
healthy and good luck with the move.
Thank you.
Yeah, whenever that would be, you know.
Yeah,
And
in
I I
the
look
next
forward
few
to
months.
yeah, I look forward to I guess you guys are in the early development phases, so in a couple of years we'll see something that you're creating, I think, right? In your company, like the lead
Yeah,
time for your development is
12
pretty,
months. Yeah. So
yeah. So
yeah,
I look
hopefully I
forward
can
to it.
share some stuff soon.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye, Kaiko.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.